Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, with special guest appearances from Andrew Hoges Hoganson, three avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Minnesota Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? The Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegran, G-R-A-N, group at edinarealty.com or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. Men for the Win is part of the Pulltab Sports Network, covering sports, culture, and entertainment across the Midwest. Check them out at pulltabsports.com and give them a follow on all your social media platforms at Pulltab Sports. On this episode, David and Dan recap the Twins' three-game series against the Seattle Mariners. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win. My name is David Kufis. With me, as always, is Dan Thompson. The Twins play host to the Seattle Mariners. They managed to take one of three. Very easily could have taken three of three. And let me tell you, Dan, days like today are particularly hard. Game 3 was a hard watch. The way the game ended was very heartbreaking. We thought we were bouncing back. The Twins were going to come back with a series victory. But the last couple of Twins losses, they're always sort of in a good time frame because the comfort you receive, Dan, from the Wild game and the Wolves games and those teams winning while your Twins losing, what I'll say is, if that's what it takes for the Minnesota teams to be successful in the playoffs is Twins losses, I'll sign up for that, at least for now, Dan, until we get a championship back to Minneapolis.
That's so Minnesotan. You know, like, all right, well, we can't possibly hope that all of our teams will be successful at the same time. So there we go. I mean, to have the Wolves and Wild both up 3-2, I'm definitely more of a Wild fan than a Wolves fan. You know, I was big into the Wolves, but only during the playoffs. The last couple of I am the definition of the bandwagon fan, and that's fine. Yes. I have no problem being a bandwagon fan. I think like high school Dan would have been mad at like 40-year-old Dan, you know, for being this way.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
But like anyway, but the Wild, I don't think I've missed a playoff Wild game on TV over the whole time that they've existed. So this has been fun. I really hope they close this out. And hopefully the Twins can get a win on Thursday as well.
That would be fun, Dan. But again, I'm okay with the ratio that we've set here. If it's Twins losses lead to Wild and Wolves wins, I'll take it. But speaking of Twins losses, let's go ahead and jump into this series recap, Dan.
Series recap.
Game 1, Dan, that's the one that you're going to want to rewatch if you had to rewatch one of them. Twins win this one 11-4. Bottom of the second, the Twins start scoring early. Bell singles. Keishel hits a double down the right field line, and Bell is chugging, let me tell you. And I was watching this game with a buddy, and the whole time Bell was running, he was just screaming at the screen, chug, get going, keep chugging. But so Bell does manage to score from first base. He's originally called out, but the Twins challenge, and the call's overturned. So the Twins are up 1-0. The Twins then continue to load the bases, but Buxton pops out to end the inning, which, my goodness, if we had to choose a motif for this series, Dan, it's Twins leaving guys on base. But then we look here ahead, bottom of the third, the Twins get some offensive momentum and they actually capitalize. So Larnach triples, Bell walks, Jeffers singles, and then Cody Clemens, Dan, who we haven't talked a ton about Cody Clemens this season. He's just been a guy, and he takes some at-bats from time to time. He plays a decent amount of first base so far. He wakes up. He hits a 3-run homer. The Twins are up 5-0. The Twins add on in the fourth here. Gray singles, and then Buxton hits a deep home run. Twins are up 7-0 at this point, Dan, and you have to be thinking, okay, maybe they can score some runs, right?
Well, especially with Connor Prelip pitching, who looks really good, at least through 4, flies through the 4, struggles in the 5th with a couple walks, a sac fly. The Mariners do good on the board, but it's 7-2 at that point. Prelip then does enough to earn his first career win, 5 innings, 1 hit, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 5 Ks, and then Andrew Morris does the piggyback and comes in for the next 3, and it's really no problem.
Not a problem at all, Dan. They add 1 in the 6th here on this weird play. So there's 2 outs. You got Gray on second. Buxton walks, and then Larnach hits a ball right up the middle. And J.P. Crawford is there to field it, but the ball hits the second base bag and bounces into left field. And, okay, it's about time we got a couple of bounces going our way, right?
Absolutely, right. Top of the 8th, the Mariners do get a couple back on a big dumper home run here. I think he had 7 or 8 now. He's really turned it around. Cal Raleigh has. Twins are 8-4. Yeah, but then the rally is shut down when Matt Wallner throws out Randy Arozarena, stretching a single into a double. Silly time to me if you're Randy Arozarena. Like, you need base runners there. But
yes,
credit Matt Wallner for playing a good right field when he feels like it.
It's about the only thing the man's capable of, Dan, is rifling guys down at second base.
Yes, but a very cute moose. Make all the boy moose go, wah!
But if you were nervous at that point, it's okay. Bottom of the 8th, the Twins put this one out of reach here. So walks for Lee and Larnach, a single from Jeffers, and a stolen base. And then Clemens comes up big again, Dan, with a 2 RBI single. The Twins win this one 11-4. Taylor Rogers earned himself some low-pressure work. I don't think earns himself is probably the right phrase to use here. But some low-pressure work for Rogers, and he finishes the 9th cleanly. The Twins get a victory, and then the good times, they turn over back to the bad times here, Dan.
Yeah, I got more to say about Taylor Rogers a little bit later here. But game 2, well, it goes well for the Mariners. They win this one 7-1, but did not feel like a game that should have been 7-1 Mariners.
No.
Like, that was the weirdest thing. So the Twins have traffic on the bases throughout the game, but they fail to get a single hit with runners in scoring position, go 0 for 10. We will bring that back up. So they waste another good outing from Joe Ryan. There are lots of good stats floating around the internet right now about Joe Ryan starts and just how bad the Twins have been. 6 innings, 6 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. Top of the 3rd, the Mariners threaten with runners on 2nd and 3rd, 1 out, but then Ryan strikes out Raleigh and then gets Rodriguez to ground out to end the threat. Bottom of the 3rd, again a theme, Twins have 2 on, 1 out, but then Larnach and Martin get out to end the inning. Bottom of the 4th, Twins again threaten. Bell singles, Clemens reaches on an air. Caratini flies out. Keishel walks. I don't know how all these things can happen in an inning and you don't score.
Yes.
Gray strikes out. Lewis grounds out to end the inning. The Twins do finally get on the board. Ironically, it's a solo home run by Buxton in the bottom of the 5th.
Yeah.
But then a great catch in the top of the 6th by Trevor Larnach. And you're thinking, okay, the Twins can't dodge these things forever. The Mariners do put together a couple hits. They score a run. Inning ends when Josh Naylor's caught stealing the 2nd time in the game. That man doesn't look like he should be good at stealing bases. He actually is, though.
He's very deceptive, right? So our favorite sound to hear when we talk about Ryan Jeffers. But the thing is, the first time he got picked off, Joe Ryan hadn't even started his windup. So he just tossed over to first and they got him at second. And then the second time, it was a closer play, obviously. But my goodness, yeah. You have to be very sneaky if you're that large and you're trying to steal bases. And to watch him fail twice, especially knowing how he's going to hit a home run here in a minute, it did feel a little bit better to the heart, I'd say.
Well, yeah, the top of the 7th, Funderburk enters and allows a leadoff double to Arozarena. A couple quick outs, so it's looking like he might get out of it. But then Funderburk advances to 3rd and then is in on a Cole Young single. So then the Mariners are up 2-1. And then it falls apart for Cole Sands in the 8th. A double to Rodriguez, a 3-run home run to Josh Naylor. It's 5-1. They had a couple more in the 9th. And so it's 7-1 just like that. But there's the rubber game, David. And you have hope here for a series win for Game 3.
There were chances. There were opportunities. Some would even say the Twins gave this game to the Mariners as a gift at the end. So Twins lose this one 5-3. So quiet couple of innings here, and then the Mariners strike first with a J.P. Crawford solo homer. So Mariners are up 1-0. Bottom of the 4th, the Twins load the bases with 1 out on singles from Jeffers and Keishel and then a Clemens walk. And so Lee comes actually through big here. Your guy, Brooks Lee, comes through big with a 2-run RBI single. Twins are up 2-1. And I think the problem with this team is that they just can't seem to add on. And when you don't have a bullpen, Dan, 1-run leads are not going to be able to be held in the way that they could last season when you had guys who were shut down guys 7, 8, 9. So then, because of that lack of guys for 7, 8, and 9, Derek Shelton leaves Taj Bradley out there. He allows him to finish the 7th, but he gives up the tying run on back-to-back doubles to Canzone and Cole Young, who Cole Young, by the way, crazy good series. This is insane. This is a series that he will remember for the rest of his life. So it's tied up 2-2 when Bradley leaves. Bottom of the 8th, though, Jeffers leads off with a single, jams out McEnners and steals second, Clemmers and Keishel K, but then Victorini, Dan, comes through with a big pinch hit RBI single. Twins are up 3-2 at this point. And then, can you just talk about the 9th, because I can't talk about
so
it right now.
Orsi was the latest Twins pitcher who couldn't throw strikes. He walks a Rosarena. Now, there's another. He gets a strikeout, but then Kenzo singles, and then Young again, a two RBI single puts the Mariners up 4-3. Another walk. So then Taylor Rogers comes in. It doesn't get better. Crawford singles. Raleigh hits a sac fly, and the Mariners are up 5-3. And just like that, David, it's over for the Twins. They lose it, and they lose the series in the process, and they drop closer to the bottom in the AL Central.
Well, Dan, as far as losing thing goes, sometimes my mind, my thoughts, they leave me, Dan. I lose them, and I think it's because I'm not drinking enough water. And did you know, Dan, 75% of people are walking around out there dehydrated, and that's not a good thing. Dehydration can leave you feeling irritable, give you brain fog, and feeling low energy, especially in this heat. Well, we've discovered a new hydration hero, and their name is Drip Drop. Drip Drop was invented more than a decade ago by Dr. Dullen during life-saving humanitarian aid missions across the globe. He created Drip Drop for fast hydration where IVs weren't possible. Drip Drop is next-level breakthrough in hydration, backed by 6 decades of ORS science, designed for both speed and taste to deliver the fastest hydration possible. Drip Drop is like a secret weapon. 90% of all professional sports teams across all the major sports use Drip Drop, including the Vikings, Wild, Wolves, and your Minnesota Twins. There's a reason the best choose Drip Drop. It's a superior product. Simply put, Drip Drop works faster and tastes better. Head to Amazon or dripdrop.com and order some Drip Drop. Mix with water and experience for yourself the fastest way to hydrate.
Catch 'em all, Kirby Puckett!
Puckett's Picks winner.
The listeners, Dan, the
Yeah,
listeners.
good on him here. Finally, Byron Buxton comes through for them here. He gets some 12 points, which is not actually the bonus because Cody Clemens had 13 points. Thank you for doing the math there. You picked Jeffers, who had 7. I picked Lewis, who had 3. And then Hoges picked Martin, who had 2. And that just tightened up the season standings, David.
Very close here. Everybody's within 2 points. Dan, you're still in the lead at 4.5. I'm in second at 3rd. And then Hoges and the listeners are both tied for 3rd place here at 2.5. And Dan, it's still early. It's still early, we've decided.
Beast versus Bench.
Is losing fun? Is losing fun?
Well, David, so, okay, Buxton is the obvious choice here, but I'm actually going to go with Ryan Jeffers here, who had 4 hits in the 2 games that he played. I was just really impressed with how he's leading the team, I believe, in OPS. He's having a really good season, David.
Yeah, you do wonder if he's a guy who we should talk about contract extensions with. That has not been in the news by any stretch, and I think there's just so much confusion about what this team is going to be moving forward, especially with the pending lockout for 27. But Jeffers is definitely making a name for himself, and he will be a hot commodity as far as free agent catchers are concerned this offseason. I got to go with the guy we just talked about, Cody Clemens. 4 for 11, 5 RBI. I do want to shout out the starting pitchers here. So between Prelip and Ryan and Bradley, this series would have been ridiculous if these guys didn't pitch well. And so I just think the starting pitching, it's sort of what we thought it would be for the most part. Like, yeah, there's been some rough outings here and there, but for the most part, Dan, these starters have been phenomenal, and it's just so sad to see these starts go to waste.
Can you imagine if they still had Pablo in this starting rotation too right now? I mean, they'd have a wealth of riches, I suppose. For my bench, I'm actually going with 3 other guys, the bullpen. So 5 guys allowed at least 1 run. Taylor Rogers right now is interesting to me because, okay, so you know the phrase, like, you can't go home again? Like, that's kind of what it feels like right now for Taylor Rogers. Like, it's not the same. You know, I would love to move back and relive my life in Northeast Minneapolis and that, but I can't recapture that time in my life. And I feel like that's kind of what Taylor Rogers is trying to do. And it's really not working. He's an afterthought after being kind of a really good closer for the Twins for much of his time here, just not on the second game of a back-to-back.
No, and okay. He signed here because of the money, though. Like,
well,
I
sure.
don't know that anybody else was going to give him.
But
yeah, I guess I don't understand the thought process of the Twins bringing back Rogers now. Is like because he was the only reliever left on the market.
Right.
Like, it's not because they were looking for a reunion and they knew that he was going to be a really good addition to this bullpen. And I think that's the hardest part about this is just that there's just no arms. There's no arms. There's no flexibility. There's nowhere to go to AAA. You can throw up young guys and just hope for the best, I guess, which honestly might be the play at this point. But even at the Saints, I think you have a whole bunch of journeyman guys down there who like aren't major league caliber guys. But it's almost like, honestly, throw them out there and see what happens at this point. I mean, that Orsi implosion, you're telling me there's not a guy at AAA who could have done that? I'm sure there's a guy at AAA who could have thrown 8 straight strikes and then 8 straight balls and then anyway, doesn't matter. I'm going to go with Matt Wallner. Speaking of AAA, it's got to be time here, Dan. 0 for 6 with 4 strikeouts. Sure, he had a couple of decent plays in the field. That's not enough to keep you here, Dan, at a hot spot where you're expected to hit from if you're in a corner outfielder.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be somebody at AAA who could do that, who has a little bit more of a future. And it's a little different, right, because you hope that Matt Wallner has a future here. He's not Taylor Rogers, but it doesn't look like he's got a future right now until they send him back down. So, I don't know. Yeah. All right, let's move forward here. Let's talk about Derek.
You ever seen Buck with his pants down? No.
Derek's debrief.
Okay, so I'm going to stick with our starting pitcher praise here. And I got to say to you, Derek, it didn't work out keeping Bradley in, and he allowed an additional run. But I don't blame you for keeping him in Game 3, top 7. Because, again, your options, there's nothing there. There's nothing there for you to go to. I do think I made a question a few episodes ago about, well, are we worried about how long he's keeping pitchers in this early in the season? 114 is a lot of pitches, Dan. Like, I mean, you look
the
at
most since
Taj's
Maeda in 2020, I believe I saw that
2020,
stat.
yeah. So it's like, okay, we need to maybe think about this a little bit. Like Taj Bradley, unless there's something we don't know about Taj Bradley's arm and that he's not capable of like losing stamina or something. But I would just say that
the Hulk or something like that. Like,
yeah, I mean, stick with him. I guess that's great. It is just a little bit concerning, like how much he's having him throw deep into games.
Would Rocco have made the same decisions this year? Do you think, given the bullpen and the starting pitchers that he's got?
I don't think. I mean, it would be such a change from what we've come to know about Rocco. That would be very surprising to me if all of a sudden he's like, yeah, the bullpen's terrible, so I'm just going to leave my starters out there. Because even when you had like guys who were sort of middling as far as those couple of innings that you had to get to before you got to Jackson, Duran, and Varland, like he also would pull pitchers in that moment, even when it felt way too early in the game.
Would you undo the Varland trade? So that was Kendry Rojas and Alan Roden. Would you do? I know Louis Varland hasn't been as good this year, I don't believe. Would you undo that?
Louis Varland's been phenomenal.
Oh, he has been. Okay, well, great. So then would you?
Yes.
Would you undo that trade?
I think undoing that one trade isn't enough. Like that's the problem.
That's a good question.
Like, I think he would be a high leverage closer guy, and I do think that the Twins probably would have 2 more wins on the season if you had a shutdown guy in the 9th. So I guess maybe actually, but again, we don't really know what Roden is. He got injured after starting the season pretty well at AAA. Rojas came up, and he was a little bit successful for his one little major league outing here. Had a little cup of coffee, then went back down. So it's hard to say right now. But in this moment, it is hard to not think that, my goodness, if Varland was on this team and he pitched as well as he's pitched in Toronto, this Twins record would look quite a bit better, I think, Dan.
Yeah, I'd take another Minnesotan on the team. Right? I think you can send Matt Wallner down. You still got a Minnesotan on the roster.
Yeah,
in that situation, that'd be great. This is a question for Derek about the lineup. So, is Brooks Lee a number 2 hitter or a number 8 hitter? I don't know. He could be both. You know, one game he's batting second, and then the next one 8th. That's just a little bit of a drop, wouldn't you say? I can understand 2 to 5, 2 to 6, but 2 to 8 is weird. What? And he's not like he's not a speed guy. Like you're not setting up the lineup to turn over with a blazer at the bottom. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into this too much, but like and maybe who is Brooks Lee? I guess is the question as a batter, because the man has many multi-hit games this year, and then he has a 4 strikeout. Who is he, and who does Derek think that he is?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because he's a switch hitter, so you can't be like, "Oh no, Dan, you just didn't look at the matchups." Like, well, no, he can bat from either side. That's not the problem here. I do think right now we keep talking about Brooks Lee, and we keep talking about Brooks Lee in a positive light, and so I just have to think that as long as he doesn't get injured,
he's got a back problem.
I think that there's a good chance, Dan, that he's going to continue hitting at the top of the lineup, especially when guys like Keyshaw are really struggling, and like you can't keep Keyshaw batting in the 3rd and 4th spot if he's not getting on base, Dan.
Yeah, you got to get on base. That's the number one thing. All right, let's look at some moments here.
Minnesota moment.
Okay, this feels like a cop-out. But game 2, my moment is all of the runners in scoring position chances before the game got away, because the series got away at that point. Again, the game flow totally changes. Now, the bullpen might still implode, right? But maybe it's 6-1 at that point when the implosion is happening, and that feels very different. That was it to me, is that you had opportunities, if you're the Twins, to establish a lead, to win the series in game 2, and then instead you're looking at a 4th straight series loss.
Very disappointing, Dan. And I have to say, the same disappointment I felt in game 2 with their failing to capitalize, I felt the exact opposite of that in game 3, bottom 8, when Victorini had that pinch hit RBI. Because I sat there, Dan, and my heart leaped.
Don't give me hope.
And then the Orsi collapse in the top of the ninth.
Leaped or leapt? I think your heart leapt, David. It didn't
Dan.
leap.
Okay, I can't deal with this.
Leaped.
You correcting me, the passive, active voice, whether it's the current or the. I don't even know all the different things.
I don't
I'm
know all
saying
the tenses
incorrectly,
myself.
Dan.
I just,
Yes.
I know it when I see it, David, and I know it's leapt and not leaped.
Okay. Can you explain the A and "and" rule while we're on it?
Not right now.
Okay.
Not right now. AFAC, DFAC, though. Give me a chance. Sorry, I derailed you here.
Yes.
But why this moment?
Because I was so excited because I thought, oh my goodness, the Twins finally came back after giving up that run to tie it. And so I'm thinking, what a turnaround, and they haven't been able to win very many close games in this fashion where they're just sort of like eking out runs. But then Orsi to come in and just not even throw competitive pitches. Like a Rosarina never even attempted to swing at a pitch. Like he was all around the zone, nowhere close to throwing strikes. So it was such a Minnesota letdown. You got real excited, your hopes up. We let ourselves, Dan, buy into this hope. And then we remember who we are. We remember that we're Minnesotans. And it all comes crashing down. And so this was a perfect picture of what it's like to be a Minnesota sports fan, is that we deny ourselves for so long to have any semblance of hope, any realistic expectations of victory. And then finally we like, okay, you know what? Maybe it is different. Maybe Brett Favre is throwing for the Vikings. Maybe he doesn't throw across his body for an interception. Maybe Blair Walsh doesn't miss wide left. Maybe KG finally has a solid number 2 and he can make it out of the playoffs. There's so many times here as Minnesota sports fans that we let ourselves finally buy in only to be let down. And this was a perfect summation in the space of about 4.5 minutes, Dan.
Oh, gosh. That was a lot of very poignant, very sad moments as a Minnesota fan. And that's not even the whole list. There's so many
I would
more.
argue it's barely scratching the surface, and I probably missed some bigger ones, Dan, that I just like. It's too. Some
Gary
of them are
Anderson,
even too hard to bring up.
yeah.
My therapist doesn't even know about some of these, Dan. How deeply I'm holding on to them.
All right. Well, let's try to look a little bit more optimistically towards the rest of the year here. Maurer's musings.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Maurer's musings.
Okay, so
Hang on, just so people know, like I think my family might listen. They're like, he's going to therapy. I don't actually have I'm nothing against therapy by any stretch, but I just thought maybe people are going to take that the wrong way.
oh man, yeah, that was. I'm glad that you're doing okay, David. I'm glad you're doing okay.
Sometimes I'll start a sentence and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way.
Okay, so we're digging towards the bottom of the barrel here, David, right? This is not a good baseball team, but I do think this is interesting at least. And I was thinking of this because last year I saw Zebby Matthews pitch against Seattle, and he pitched really, really well, right? He had a great game. But no Zebby Matthews in the majors yet. Now, he didn't have a great first few starts in the minors, but he's been better lately. I just find it interesting that he kind of got passed over by guys like Connor Prelip, by Andrew Morris, by these other people. And I know Morris has been playing out of the bullpen. But do you find it odd that we haven't seen Zebby when we talked about him as a candidate to start in this rotation?
It would be harder to understand if it wasn't clear that the Twins want to keep him as a true starter for the time being, and had he had a better start at AAA.
Sure.
So I just think that because of the struggles early on, and because Prelip was a guy who ended last season on a crazy run where nobody could hit him, and so I think the Twins were eager to see what he could bring to the table. And my goodness, when you're talking about a team that has quite a few starting pitching options, if you get called up and you're as successful as Prelip has been, you're not going to get sent back down. The Twins can't do it. So right now, I think the most likely option is SWR gets sent down, and and Zebby gets brought up. But would you make that right now? Because I don't know
No,
that
I
I'm willing
wouldn't
to make that move.
I wouldn't do it now. I guess I'm just surprised that Zebby wasn't tapped earlier. I don't mind it, but if I'm Zebby, I think I'm maybe a little bit irked. That like, where's my chance here? I had a great season in the majors. I mean, relative, to how rookies normally perform. So it's good. It speaks to the Twins' depth. It's just, gosh, I wish somebody could get guys out after the 7th inning.
Yes, no question. And
problem.
I do wonder if they're sort of still tagging Zebby as a guy who could potentially move to the bullpen. But I think because he hasn't, like they haven't decided to make that transition, I don't think you call him up as a starter when you have these other quality options.
Yeah.
Okay, Dan, here's my question. It's a little, I don't know how to think about this because the problem is it forces me to say that Tom Pohlad was genuine with his belief that the Twins were going to be competitive this season. So.
Okay, all right. Do we have a tinfoil hat sounder, David? I feel
we
like
should.
this is where...
I don't even think it's tinfoil. This is just like straight facts, Dan Thompson.
There he is beating that dead horse.
Close enough.
That's reasonable. Okay. If Tom Pohlad truly, genuinely believed that the Twins were going to be competitive this year, should he not join the club of the teams that are firing their managers due to subpar starts?
No, because Derek Shelton, he just hired Derek Shelton a little bit ago. Well, maybe he didn't. I think it was his puppet brother over there doing who was it before? So, no, I don't think so. You don't fire a manager, 25, 30 games into his tenure as the manager. This is different than the firings we're going to talk about in Herbie's headlines. This is not the same. You think it's different? Or you think it is the same? You think that they could fire him?
I'm just saying, if you truly thought the team was going to be competitive and you think that the manager change wasn't all you thought it could be, it has to at least be in the conversation if you thought this team was going to be competitive.
But this isn't like Al Davis, Oakland Raiders, where he just assumes that everybody should win all the time, even though it's a total dumpster fire of an organization, right? Like, I don't
Well,
see
that is sort of what it is, Dan.
Well,
You described,
no,
that's
this
a perfect
isn't a dumpster
analogy.
fire.
Ogres are like onions. End of story.
I don't like the use of that sound. It is not a good analogy here in this situation. This is not Oakland 2010, right? This is not the same thing.
It might as well be, Dan. I guess I'm just having trouble understanding that I get he just started. And I know that we're not, as somebody who watches a lot of soccer documentaries, they fire guys left and right, Dan, if they come in and they don't do a good job right away.
But not a lot of
so
soccer.
I understand that
not a lot of soccer, just a lot of other documentaries.
Yeah, so it's unprecedented, certainly, to hire a manager and fire him this quickly. But the thing is, if Tom Pohlad really thought the team should be competitive, what's the thing you can change? Well, change the manager because that's the one piece you can actually change.
Sure, I mean, if he was totally delusional, but I don't think he really thought that. I mean, he's a salesman.
Well, that's what I wanted you to say. That's honestly what I wanted you to say, is that there's no way that Tom Pohlad actually thought that this team was going to be competitive, because that's the only way that you can argue that he shouldn't be looking at a managerial change.
No, you can, because you don't fire the manager the first month into the job, into the season, right? That's not something that you do. Even in the worst sports situations, you don't do that.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead. Let's grade the series here, Dan.
Series grades.
Well,
Gonna be a D here.
You better go first here. I have a more
Always,
charitable
yeah.
grade than I think I ought to. But
We're on season 7, and you still try and go first in the grade segment, Dan. So I have to give him a D here. You can't keep hoping that your bullpen's going to hold on to 1-run leads. 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position in Game 2 was a ridiculous stat that I was looking at over and over again, refreshing the box score to make sure that I had it right, because I couldn't believe it. You go 3 for 12 with runners in scoring position in Game 3, a game that you should have won. Granted, again, the bullpen is not faultless here. However, I've made the analogy already that, you can only ask someone to try their best. And that's all they can give you, is for them to try their best. And I truly think the bullpen is trying their best, Dan. It's just not very good.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So, okay, I had to change my rubric a little bit because I felt like my top, middle, bottom of the lineup wasn't working because of the Brooks Lee situation, right? Is Brooks Lee at the top or the bottom of the line? I can't figure it out. So I've gone to fielding, hitting, and bases, like base running, and then, which is kind of like base running intelligence too. And then the starters and bullpen stay the same. So The fielding, they had no errors, David, and I think I need to give them a 10 out of 10 just for that. They had a couple, or at least the Wallner throwing a guy out at second. They picked a couple guys off. Hitting, I gave them a 7 out of 10. They had that really good game, right? And I can't totally discount that, and they did enough in Game 3 to win, but Game 2 was a huge mess. And then bases, okay, they stole 7 bases. They were not caught stealing. Bell's slide was amazing for a bigger guy, right?
Yeah.
The way that he contorted his body, it was like a Kepler, like, paint me like one of your French girls moment. Like, that's what it was.
All girls are like onions.
It was a beautiful slide. So anyway, I gave him a 10 out of 10 there. So that's a good start. The starters, I gave him an 8 out of 10 because of the things that you said, but the bullpen I gave a 3 out of 10, which I think is my lowest score of the year. It was just so obvious that they were bad this series. And so that told us out to a 38 out of 50, which is a 76%, which is a C. And I think that's okay.
No, I think you're hitting for a series that they lost 2 out of 3 primarily due to a lack of offense. 7 out of 10 for the hitting feels real high, Dan.
Well, if you're not at your peak either, there's a product we can tell you about here. Cascade CBX Sport is the athlete's first choice to get them to peak performance. It's available in sample size, roll-on, and pump bottle. Cascade CBX Sport is changing the game with their unique line of sports CBD designed for athletes by athletes. The CBD industry talks a lot about efficacy, which is just a big word for if a product actually works. With more CBD per milligram than the competition, Cascade CBX Sport products are the first choice of athletes to manage their pain and reduce inflammation. See for yourself. Visit CascadeCBXSport.com and trust the Shield to stay on the field.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag.
Herbie's headlines.
Okay, so we talked about Alex Cora getting fired from my beloved Red Sox. And then the Phillies fired manager Rob Thompson. And the Phillies then offered Alex Cora the job. He turned it down. And so now Don Mattingly is named the interim manager. But the Phillies GM, Dan, is his son, Preston, which... That's the most bizarre thing I've ever heard. There were so many...
Nepotism, it is that.
But is this the reverse of... Is it still nepotism if it's the son to the father?
It's paternalism or something like that? Is that what it would be?
In any other industry, if you say, I'm working at my son's company, that's not nepotism, that's charity, I think, Dan, is what you would call that.
Well, it's cheap labor, I think. Maybe that's the other way around. Like, you don't have to pay him very much. Maybe he can get by on a lower salary. Weird. I mean, it's ironic. Rob Thompson was the guy who replaced a manager for the Phillies midseason and led them to the World Series. So, I guess it's not even poetic justice. It's a bummer for Rob Thompson, I guess, after this. The Padres' Mason Miller's scoreless streak ended at 34 2/3 innings, the 8th longest all-time for relievers. I don't think we're going to see any Twins relievers getting anywhere near that list this season.
None who are on the team currently. Maybe one who was on the team previously, Dan.
Maybe,
but
yeah.
The Guardians call up Travis Bazzana. I don't know if that's how you say his name, but he's their number 1 pick from 2024. He's a 23-year-old Australian, and the only reason I included this note, Dan, is because he used Man Down Under's or Men at Work song "Man Down Under" as his walk-up song, which I just thought was incredible.
That's really lovely. And then Reds fans win free pizza with 11 strikeouts, and the Rockies. In the Rockies game, the 11th K came on an ABS ball-turned strike. Again, one of these cool new moments that ABS is giving us.
Yes, it was just so fun to hear the crowd's reaction because it was the top of the 9th, but it was like the first or second out. Like, it wasn't like the game was over. And the ABS happened. It was the 11th strikeout, so everybody's just screaming for free pizza, Dan.
It's the random cheers sometimes you get at sporting events for giveaways.
Yes.
This happens at all kinds of sporting events. All right, let's move on here. Let's make our picks for the next series.
And we'll see you tomorrow night.
Puckett's Picks.
Well, the listeners are going to stick with Buxton. That's not shocking. Hoges is going to take Jeffers off the board, and then it goes to you, Dan Thompson.
Yeah, I mean, those are the players who are actually hitting the best for this team in this situation. Gosh, I guess who do I go after? I go to after this. I guess I'm going to stick with Royce Lewis. It feels foolish, but I just like the guy too much. I feel like he's going to have a good series.
I kind of want to go with Austin Martin, but he doesn't get the playing time for whatever reason. And so I'm going I'm riding that train, Dan. Brooks Lee is going to be my guy for this series. I think he's going to come through big.
All right, I don't blame you. Well, here we are. So we'll have a 4-game series to talk about here. No day off for the Twins. And I think with that, David, I'm going to go ahead and send us out.
Please do.
Well, folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on X at Min for the Win and find our Min for the Win Facebook and Instagram pages. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on your favorite platforms so you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you leave us a rating or a like, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show further, you can find us on Patreon. The link is in the description. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Twins.
That'll wrap up another episode of Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, with special guest appearances from Andrew Hoges Hoganson, 3 avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Minnesota Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins!